Hello, bookworms! Today I'm going to share with you my most disappointing books of 2015. These are not necessarily books that came out during 2015, but they are the books that I read during 2015 that I disliked the most of any other books. Fortunately, I couldn't come up with a full 10, so there are actually only 9 books that I'm going to be showing you. I am sorry if some of these are your favorite books. They just weren't books that resonated with me very much. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad books, because obviously everyone has different taste, but anyway, here we go. My first most disappointing book is Paper Towns by John Green. I really liked a lot of this book, but I really disliked the main character, Margot. I thought that she seemed kind of like a spoiled brat, and her whole attitude just really bothered me and put a bad taste in my mouth. I liked John Green's writing as always, but I do feel like he's constantly telling the same story over and over, so this being my third John Green book, it just didn't resonate with me as much as Looking for Alaska or The Fault in Our Stars. I am sad about it because I really do like John Green, but again, this just was not one of my favorite books. Next up, I have Fairest by Marissa Meyer. This is the prequel novel to the Lunar Chronicles series. It is a backstory all about Levana. It explains why she is just as evil as she is today, but I really felt like a lot of it was just very unnecessary. It didn't help me sympathize at all with with Levana as a villain. I still felt like she is evil and choosing to be evil when she could choose to be a better person. She did have some bad things happen to her, but it wasn't enough to turn her into what she is today. So while I really do enjoy the rest of this series, I just didn't like this particular book. Next up, I have Armada by Ernest Cline. This is probably one of the saddest ones to include because I am obsessed with Ernest Cline's first book, Ready Player One. Like, it was one of my favorite books and I just loved it so much, so I had really high hopes for his follow-up and it just really didn't deliver. It was basically the same exact plot of The Last Starfighter, and it was also really similar to Ender's Game. There was not enough originality to separate it as its own story, and I just everything that happened in it was very predictable. It leaves a little bit of room open if he were to write another book, and I perhaps would be more interested in that one, but this one was just not exciting and I really wanted it to be. Next up, I have a probably very controversial one, and that is Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. I did like this book. I'm not saying that this was a bad book at all because I really did enjoy it, but I think because there's so much hype surrounding it and there's so many people that are obsessed with this series, I was just expecting a lot more out of it. I'm not sure if I am having trouble liking it as much as other people because of my age, because I am a little bit older, so it's harder for me to relate to middle grade characters. It just wasn't as good as I was expecting. And again, I liked it. I read the second book in the series, I liked that too, but it just wasn't as good as I thought that it was going to be. The next book is probably another very controversial one, and that is Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. This is the first book in my entire life that I have ever decided to stop reading. I got about 570 pages into this book when I decided to call it quits. There were some elements about it that I liked. I enjoyed the writing style. I just had issues with the way that certain things were handled. For instance, Jamie ends up beating Claire at one point, and because she's his wife and she did something wrong, so he has to punish her so that she doesn't do it again, and I just don't like that idea. I get that it is a different time, but I just didn't like reading about it. I don't know, there is such a strong cult following for this, and it makes me sad that I couldn't get as into it as other people, but I am still willing to give the TV show a shot because I've heard that that could be good, even people that haven't really liked this as much. But I was really sad about it because I bought 4 of the first books in this series expecting to just love it, and I just really did not. Next, I have You're Never Weird on the Internet Almost by Felicia Day, and this is actually the second book that I've ever decided to stop reading. It's a memoir by Felicia Day, who I adore. Like, I think that she is a great actress. I really enjoy her work on The Guild. I loved seeing her on Buffy. I like her character on Supernatural. So there were a lot of things that this book had going for it, and I really thought that I was going to enjoy it because I love seeing the way that people got to where they are today, but I just really was not interested in a lot of the things that she had to say. Like, she was homeschooled, which is different, and she spent a lot of her time on the internet, but it just really wasn't anything like interesting enough to keep me reading. I even read past the part where she discusses how she made the guilds because I thought like, okay, this will be the part that actually makes me want to continue reading. And again, like I didn't find it as funny as other people. I don't know if maybe I should have read the audiobook so that I could have had her voice narrating, but it just really didn't work for me. Next, I have one of my recent reads, and that is Shatter Me by Tahereh Mafi. I really love the writing style. I thought that the prose was absolutely beautiful, but I really didn't like the plot of the book, and I really did not feel anything for the main character, which is fine. Like, I don't have to love a main character in order for me to like a book, but I didn't feel connected to her in any way, and I really just wasn't very interested in her storyline. Again, I don't know if it's maybe because I don't read that much dystopian anymore. I think that maybe if I read this a few years ago, I would really love it, but reading it now, it just wasn't what I wanted. And again, this is another book where I feel like there's a lot of hype surrounding it, so I just had higher expectations going into it, and they just didn't, like, Shatter Me just did not live up to those expectations. But I am planning on reading the second book because the end of the book is where this really gripped me. So if it wasn't for those last like 2 chapters, I would definitely be done with it. But in the last 2 chapters, I got more interested in what was going to happen next. The final book that I have to show you is Winterspell by Clara Legrand. I love this cover. I love the concept. It's a YA retelling of The Nutcracker. It's a fantasy standalone, so it sounds like everything that I would really want, but it was terrible. It was really terrible. If you want to find out all of the reasons why it was so bad, I will link down below the video that Cassie, Melissa, and I did for the Spines with Wines book club, and you can see like what exactly it was that we didn't like. But just to give a brief overview, it completely over-sexualized the main character, and there was just so much weird stuff going on where like she had feelings for the statue, and she had all of these older men in her life that were constantly like hitting on her and having weird jealous feelings for her. And then she goes into this fantasy world, and there was one book of it that was very interesting, but the vast majority of the book was just painful to read. So this was like honestly my most disappointing read of the year of any of the books that I've mentioned. So those are all of the books that are my most disappointing reads of 2015. I would love to know what books you've read that you were expecting a lot more from and you also were very disappointed in. Let me know if you have read any of the books that I've mentioned and you've had different feelings about them, or if you have read any of them and have the same feelings as me about them. That would be cool too. So I will see you guys soon with a new video. Bye!